In this video, I'm going to show you how to access a really helpful tool, and it's called a developer tool. In Google Chrome, click the sidebar, go to More Tools, and then down to the developer tool. And that's how you'll access it through Google Chrome. If you were using Safari, you would first have to add it by going into Preferences. From General, you'll want to go over to Advanced, and you'll want to click Show Develop menu in the menu bar, which is up here. So once you've added that, click Develop and go to Show Web Inspector. And that's how you'll access that tool. Now going back to Google Chrome, it's very helpful when you're trying to figure out your layout or your spacing dealing with padding, border, and margin. For example, close out the body by clicking the arrow on the side. So you can see that this is an HTML document. Our head is what contained the information we wrote within that document. It says the title is CSS Home, and it says that we're linking style1.css as the style sheet for this. So you can see that same exact code right here in our document. You can see that body automatically inherited some margin. Under styles, when you have body selected, you can see by tracing your mouse along the diagram, you can see the margin is 8 pixels all around. There's no border, no padding, and the element takes up this space. So as you expand your window, those numbers within the element are going to change, but the margin is remaining the same. And that's the code that's initial in the user agent style sheet. So expanding body, we're going to look at what we've done for ours. Starting with our first H1, you can see the different classes that it took on. So here's our main class, our large class, and the code that we wrote for H1. Here's the group code from what we've grouped, and this was the user agent style sheet. So this is what H1 was initially before we changed it. So when you're looking at H1, you can see the margin is 10, which we had for the top, 10, which we had for the bottom, 30% left, and 30% right. So if we were to shrink or enlarge the page, the numbers within the percentages are going to change. And that's because they're relative. But the 10 pixels above and the 10 pixels below are going to always remain 10 pixels because that's static. You can see our border, which is 3 pixels on all sides, our padding that we set is 30 pixels on all sides, and then our element. Our H2, this takes on the main class. So we're going to have 40 pixels above. It's going to be 20 pixels to the left and right, and you can see 0 pixels on the bottom. Again, for our border, we set it to be 2 pixels, and we only wanted the border to be underneath the element itself. Then 5 pixels as the padding on the bottom, and then the element. Expanding P, you can see exactly the code we typed within our P tags. And then last, we have our H1 that says, what will you learn? Now, a neat trick for customizing this is if you want to see how certain things look, you can change it within your developer tools. So for H1, our margin is 0.67 before and after, and 0 pixels on the left and right. Let's go into our code and change that. So we're going to go up to our H1 because this is an H1 header. So we're going to say margin dash bottom, set that to 100 pixels, save and refresh, and you can see then when we go to our H1, the margin has extended down 100 pixels. When you refresh the page, initially there will be no change because there's no element below that last H1, so you don't see the margin expand. But when you click, you'll be able to see it on the screen by hovering over your margin and highlighting what your margin is. You can also change it. For example, if we want it to be 0 pixels, you can change it on the screen and see how that affects different elements. So if we wanted to go back up to our first class, instead of it being 10 pixels for the bottom, 100 pixels, 200 pixels, and so on. But remember, when you refresh the page, that will go away because you didn't save it within your style sheet. So for our case, we actually want H1 to have no bottom margin. So set that to 0 pixels, save, refresh. So having this value of 0 pixels for the margin-bottom property for our H1 selector is going to help us with styling in our next video. But from this video, you should take away how to access and use those developer tools to your advantage. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below.